you've had a chance to review, hopefully, and I would take a motion on that. Senator Blue.
I did have one correction that communicated, but move to as amended or corrected.
Oh, so as amended, you found, okay, very good. Okay, do you want to make a motion to approve as amended?
Move to approve as amended on February 11th. It's the only one we had something. That's my motion.
And approve the rest as stated?
Yes.
As delivered. Okay.
As written.
Second on that. Second by Senator Blue. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That is passed. Okay, I think we're going to hold final action until after we have these hearings. We have two really simple bills. I think I'm going to change the name of the committee to the Simple Bill Committee. Simple Bill Committee. So first up is hearing on House Bill 2016, and that's online obituary notices for sufficient grounds for removal of a deceased voter from the voter registration books. And I'll have Jason give us a quick overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2016 amends one statute, 25-2316C. This statute provides for the removal of names from the voter registration books under certain circumstances. Under current law, the county election officers are directed to remove the names of deceased or disqualified voters from the county voter registration books. The statute provides various official sources for those county election offices to use in verifying when to remove a voter's name. That includes obituary notices and newspapers of general circulation in the county, specific written requests from the voter themselves, court orders for the removal of a voter's name, lists of deceased individuals or death certificates provided by the Secretary of Health and Environment, and information on decedents that's provided by the Federal Social Security Administration. House Bill 2016 would add an additional official source for verifying when to remove a voter's name from the registration books. This would be if the obituary notice is published online by the funeral home that is located in the county and reports the death of the registered voter. So it would be an additional obituary notice source for those county election officials to use in checking and updating the voter registration books. House Bill 2016 passed the House by a final vote of 106 to 13. This change would go into effect on July 1st of this year if enacted, and with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Committee, any questions on that? Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, didn't we already deal with legislation like this in the past, or so what's different with this bill?
We've had bills in the past on cleaning up voter registration books. This one is new in that, and I'll let the conferee probably can speak more to the motivation behind the legislation. My understanding is that it just provides an additional source for obituary notices for county election officers to check to see if there's a deceased individual whose name then needs to be removed from the voter registration books.
Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? Senator Gossage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jason. Honestly, I'm really glad that they're adding this, because if you have a voter in the family, particularly an elderly voter that's just, making sure that she votes, I'm thinking of my mother. The last thing you think to do when you are her children is to go make sure that her name gets off the voter rolls. So what you're busy doing 1,000 other things and trying to settle the estate and go through private personal items. And so I'm really glad now that these things are available online that could just take care of without you having to worry about it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jason, very much. We have proponent testimony. I don't see Clay, but I think we have Brian Caskey standing in for Clay Barker from the Secretary of State's office. And Brian, welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You are blessed in that I am here in place of Clay. Clay will be here shortly, but he trusted me that I could adequately explain this to the committee. So fortunately, Jason did an excellent job explaining what the bill does. The Secretary does stand in support of this bill, which expands the authority of county election officers to use not only newspaper obituaries, but online obituary notices through newspapers and through local funeral homes. This is in addition to what we already do. Currently, in addition to that, every week, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment sends a list of every person with a death certificate on file in the state of Kansas to the Secretary of State through our voter registration system. So every week, we are already getting this information automatically from KDHE, and that goes to local election officials. And then periodically, we get death information from the National Social Security Administration Master Death List. That's much less frequent, mostly because we rely on the federal SSA to say yes to us. They don't always play nicely, but we are encouraging our federal partners to get them to do that more frequently. So we are already doing these things. This would be in addition to that. So as it says, current law just says you can remove a voter if an obituary notice appears in a newspaper having general circulation. So we're just adding the online notice of that, and also if it appears in an online funeral home notice. And the reason for that is across the state, many newspapers are printing fewer and fewer funeral notices in the paper, and they're moving online, and funeral homes are kind of filling in the gap. So this is the why we're here today. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Senator Dietrich.
Thank you. I think this is great. I just want to echo what Senator Gossage said. I think it's a great option for all of you. I just had a quick question about, sometimes you get people with really common names, I hope there's not an Eric Smith in the room, but I know like half a dozen Eric Smiths. And so how do you know this is that Eric Smith?
So the election office has to verify the identity. So if it is a common name and there's no date of birth, that's not sufficient. It gives them evidence and allows them to follow up. And understanding this is a difficult time and it's not always the best time to follow up, but counties do an excellent job of following up and making sure they just don't take it off just because there's a similar name in the same county. In Johnson County, I'm quite certain there's more than one Eric Smith. So they follow up.
Senator Fascido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is there someone in your office that does this job only, or do you just get an email and someone periodically checks it, or do you have to hire someone else to do this?
So the Secretary of State's office, we don't do anything other than facilitate the transfer of information from KDHE to the 105 counties. Only county election officers can modify the election rolls. So when we receive information, we send it to them, and it's their job to do that. So officially, I don't have anyone that does this on a full-time basis or part-time.
Any other questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you, Brian. We have written testimony committee from three other people: Sedgwick County Committee Woman Carrie Sue Vosberg, Tammy Minahan, and Debbie Detmer. And no neutral, no opponents. Seeing no other testimony, we will close hearing on House Bill 2016. When we work that, it seems to be a potential consent calendar bill, but we'll see how the vote goes. Next, we'll open the hearing on House Bill 2020, and that has to do with the Department of Vehicles. And I'll have Jason give us an overview on that bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2020 is actually another voter registration bill on cleaning up voter registration lists. It creates a new section of law, new section 1, that directs the Director of the Division of Motor Vehicles to provide quarterly reports to the Secretary of State on all driver's licenses issued to non-citizens. It specifies what the report is to contain. That includes name, address, phone number, social security numbers, birth dates, alien registration numbers, and the driver's license number and expiration date for the license issued for each individual that's included in the report. The bill then directs the Secretary of State to compare that report against the voter registration lists that the Secretary has and determine if any non-citizen is registered to vote. If a individual is determined to be a non-citizen and is on a voter registration list, then the Secretary is to direct the appropriate county election officer to remove such individual from the voter registration books within 5 days. There is a provision that the county election officer must, upon removing the individual from the voter registration books, notify the person that they are being removed and that they can be reinstated as a registered voter by providing proof of citizenship. There is an amendment to 8-240, which is a rather lengthy statute, which is why the bill is 6 pages. That amendment is on page 6 of the bill, simply adding a new subsection that conforms to this, directing the director of the Division of Motor Vehicles to submit that quarterly report to the Secretary of State as required under Section 1. House Bill 2020 was amended by the House Committee on Elections to specify that it was the Secretary's role simply to compare the information coming from DMV with the voter registrations list, and that it is the county election officer's role to actually remove those names from the list and notify the individual that they are being removed. The bill passed on final action in the House on a vote of 83 to 34. This change would go into effect on July 1st if enacted. I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Committee, any questions? Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so this is putting the onus, reporting on the driver's department as opposed to the election office, that when we apply to vote, we get that little card in the mail that verifies everything that's needed. So
Yes, because driver's licenses can be issued to non-citizens, I believe the impetus of this is to double-check the driver's license records of licenses that have been issued to individuals with the voter registration list to see if any individual who's a non-citizen and been issued a license also appears on the voter registration list and should be removed.
Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jason. We have one in-person, pardon me, proponent testimony. Again, Brian Caskey standing in for Clay Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Secretary is here in support of House Bill 2020, which amends KSA 8-240 that will require the Director of Motor Vehicles to provide a quarterly list to the Secretary of State of any person who has been issued a temporary driver's license. Kansas is a real ID state, and a person receives a temporary driver's license if they prove that they are lawfully present in the state of Kansas and are not issued a regular driver's license. So if you have a TDL, by definition, you have provided the government evidence that you are not a U.S. citizen. To my knowledge, it's one of the few direct sources that we've heard from the person that they are confirming that they're not a U.S. citizen. So we are asking for a quarterly report of this from the Division of Motor Vehicles to compare that with our list of registered voters. We have done that periodically, I would say approximately 5 times in the last 15 years, the most recent being last December. And so we're just asking to make this part of our normal course of list maintenance. As a little background, since November of 1918, only citizens are permitted to register and to vote in any election held in the state of Kansas. It is both a federal and state crime to knowingly vote if you're not a U.S. citizen. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing currently. First thing is, when you apply to register to vote, every person, they have to sign a voter registration card. The voter registration application asks you to affirmatively state that you are a U.S. citizen. You have to check a box online, fill in the oval on the paper card. Failure to do so prevents you from being registered to vote. And you can see a snapshot of that in my written testimony. The second thing we do is that every month, every clerk of the district court sends us a notice of persons who have responded to jury questionnaires stating that they are not a U.S. citizen. So every one of the judicial courts sends us that information monthly. Third, we have periodically used the TDL list in previous years. And then fourth, if we receive information or if law enforcement receives information in the course of investigation from a person stating that they're not a U.S. citizen. So those are the 4 main things that we proactively do through the Secretary of State's office. I'm sure most of you are aware that right now, Kansas has a law that requires any person who applies to register to vote to provide documentary proof of citizenship. That law went into effect in 2011, and was first, when, the first election I think that was used was in 2014. In 2013, a lawsuit was filed against the Secretary of State, and in 2018, in federal district court, that law was declared unconstitutional. The Secretary of State's office appealed that, and in 2021, the U.S. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals turned down the appeal, and then the state went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they declined to take up the case. So although we currently have a law that requires documentary proof of citizenship, it is not enforceable, and it has not been since 2018. As far as I know, only Arizona has a law that requires documentary proof of citizenship, and that only applies for state elections, not federal elections. There are a handful of other states that they're talking about currently, but that Arizona is the only one that currently has that in effect, to the best of my knowledge. We did do this comparison last December. We reviewed approximately 30,000 individuals who had been issued a temporary driver's license against the statewide database of registered voters. We found 171 potential matches of persons who were on the TDL list and were in the voter registration database. This included currently registered voters and voters who have already had their voter registration canceled. After further review, 80 of those records warrant additional investigation. We are currently in that review. One of the things that we're doing is we joined the systematic alien verification program through DHS, where we can take records and go to DHS and look up what their current status is. It's a slow process, because I don't want to take shots at the federal government, but the federal government's involved. And second, we can only look up one record at a time. So we're still reviewing these 80. And once we have a better handle on that, we will report back to the committee. In my experience, that number of 80 will drastically reduce. We will find false positives. We will find people who have subsequently provided their proof of citizenship. And so we're currently looking through that. But like I said, once we're done with our review, we will let you know. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Committee questions. Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your testimony. One of the neutral individuals testifying, neutral, suggested that you should report this to us. Are you doing any reporting on your voter verification?
Once I have some information to report, I would be happy to report to the committee. At this time, we're still in our review, but absolutely happy to report.
They also recommended putting you on the clock, but I kind of disagree with that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure thing. Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, the legislature just passed Senate Bill 500, allowing for a restrictive driver's license. And then this is saying a temporary driver's license. So I really need to know the difference in that. Those that go to the Department of Revenue in the Driver Solutions Department in connection with the Motor Vehicles Department don't get caught up in this. So I need a clear definition of, because in Senate bill, in the current law, it says restrictive. This is saying a temporary. So what's the major difference, and how will we make sure that they are not confused?
Sure. So I am not an employee of DMV. I know this much about all the driver's license transactions. I'm quite certain someone behind me is smarter than I am. But as it relates to temporary driver's licenses, we know to get a temporary driver's license, you have to be a non-U.S. citizen, and you have to provide the paperwork issued by the government that acknowledges you're here and the length of time that you're here. So that's why it's a temporary driver's license. It's only valid for the length of time that you are authorized to legally be in the United States. I know that. I don't know much about restrictive. Again, I'm happy to defer to the audience if that's what the committee needs, but that's where I'm at.
Good enough. Okay. Any other questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We have some other written testimony and proponent testimony by 5 other folks. We have opponent testimony written by Roshanae Hamby of ACLU of Kansas. And we do have neutral WebEx testimony. One's written by Carrie Sue Vosberg, but Missy Levitt is here to provide neutral testimony. Missy, are you online?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. We'll give you a couple minutes and you can go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm always glad to give you guys my take on things. And so I just wanted to present to you guys a letter that I was emailed this week that was presented to our Secretary of State's office from America First Legal. And to me, this is a document that I just wanted you guys to have. I do support us cleaning our voter rolls, and it's actually federally required. And so the first 3 pages of this letter attached to my testimony just kind of give a lot of basic information, also the format of the EAC voter registration blocks and the requirements and kind of the cohesiveness with the NVRA that is required that the state of Kansas does subscribe to. I do want to point out on page 4 of that letter in section 3 that there are some concerns over the DHS design flaws with the SAVE database that is used. And further down on page 5 in section 4 of the letter, there's some solutions that are provided. What I really love about this letter is it just gives a lot of US code for you guys to look through and understand the difference of the different identification numbers that are provided. I don't know how the DMV or any of our voter registration entities get these numbers if it's required through them. I did notice in the bill that one of the numbers is added into the bill, which I appreciate because it seems the SAVE database is not really as helpful as we would like it to be for our Secretary of State to do his job, because they are not going off of Social Security numbers or driver's license numbers. So that's effectively a problem in my opinion. I don't know if that's something that statutorily can be changed or updated just to increase, the ability of us to get this work done and do it quickly. I know 30,000 people is a lot to go through, and I would just hope that this is informational for you all. I appreciate the bill very much. I appreciate your guys' time. I just wanted you to have extra information. If there's anything you can spot in this letter that may bring something to your attention that you would want to add before we pass it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Missy, and I will chat with our Secretary of State's office and have them review that and see if there's anything before we work the bill that we need to update or change. I appreciate that. Committee, any questions for Missy? Seeing none, like I said, we have written testimony from Carrie Sue Vosberg, also neutral, and no other testimony apparent on this particular bill, House Bill 2020. So with that, we will close the hearing on House Bill 2020. We have several bills we need to work today, committee. So we'll start off with, I'm going to start with House Bill 2022 and have Jason give us a quick review.
As Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2022 was the bill amending the definition of special election under the general definitions for the election code to clarify that the prohibition on holding a special election within 45 days of a general or primary election includes the 45 days before and the 45 days after a general or primary election.
Just basically clarifying language. Committee, any questions on the base bill? Seeing none, I think we have an amendment on this bill. I have Jason pass that out. Thank you, sir. And I think have Jason go ahead and explain this amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the amendment before you would bring in the contents of, I believe, the other Senate bill that was referenced in the hearing on specifying a particular day in the spring for holding special elections. Under this balloon, it would require that a special election that is not held on the same day as a general or primary election would have to be held on the first Tuesday in April. And so local municipalities needing to hold a special election would have those 3 dates to essentially choose from for their special election date. They could hold it on a primary election date, a general election date, or on the first Tuesday in April.
And this came to us from, I think, concerns over what was happening in Sedgwick County, I believe, on multiple elections in a very close period of time. Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, is it only for municipalities or school bonds, and those issues are also part of this?
It would be any instance in which a special election can be called. So that includes the issuance of school bonds or any other question submitted special election by a municipality.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure, too, that it would be an in-person ballot, not a mail election, or we didn't address that in here. I didn't think about that when we were working on this, so my apologies, Jason.
No, mail ballot elections have their own particular restrictions on when you can do a mail ballot election. They are generally restricted for just questions submitted, but no, this amendment does not require it to be a regular election. So it could be a mail ballot election on that particular day. It would just be the ballots would be returned on that special election day. I'm going to refer to the Secretary of State's office for confirmation on that.
Would you like Brian Cassidy to come up and address that?
Sure.
And then we can discuss a little further. Brian?
I'm just confirming what Jason said. The version of the amendment that I saw does not prohibit any all-mail election for a special election.
Senator Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we'll dispose of this and then address the mail ballot issue.
Okay. Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've had one other bill before this committee, which we have yet a chance to work, which is Senate Bill 65, and it's the irrigation districts. And that's calling for an election on the first Tuesday in March. So
Of course, we haven't worked that yet.
We haven't worked that.
This would have an impact on that.
This would have an impact on that, but I'm wondering if, since we have a representative from the Secretary of State's office, if they could comment, if there's any difference or they see any difference between March and April. I tried to look at quickly how many months there would be in between, and either March or April would provide for from one of those, so.
Brian, do you have any comment on that? Or is it just a policy decision?
I believe that's just a policy decision, up to you. We don't have a comment one way or the other, which one's better.
Senator Francisco?
So I was just wondering if there were any other entities like the irrigation districts that are using the first Tuesday in March.
To the best of my knowledge, no one is. Not even, I mean, I'm going to caveat this with there are dozens of statutes that require special elections across hundreds, if not thousands, of jurisdictions. So I have not done an exhaustive search. I believe that tax lid elections are held at a different time than what this contemplates. There's probably a couple others that I just can't recall. So I don't want to confirm that because that's too broad of a question for my brain at the moment.
Senator Francisco?
Thank you, I appreciate that. And so if just someone could give me why they picked the first Tuesday in April. And do we want to say the first Tuesday after the first Monday?
That might be an appropriate way to go about that. Senator Clifford, did you have a question? Okay. Senator Tyson, any comment on? I think it was a policy decision on the date, pretty much, and felt like April was a little bit more. Senator Tyson?
Thank you. Since I had the amendment drawn up, I will comment it.
Okay.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the reason was because of the previous elections that we used to have in April. So it just was kind of keeping the pattern of history was why April.
Senator Francisco?
Thank you. So was that the first Tuesday after, the first Tuesday after the first Monday, or do we want elections on April Fool's Day?
First Tuesday in April is how it's listed.
We can make it so it would be consistent with all elections, as you said, Senator, the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
So make a conceptual amendment to the amendment to do it that. You got it, Jason? Okay, so it'd be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in April to avoid April Fools. We don't have to put that in the amendment, Jason. Okay, committee. Everybody understands what we're doing here. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Senator, since you drew that up, do you want to move your amendment?
Thank you. I move my amendment.
Senator Tyson moves the amendment on House Bill 2022 as, I don't know, do we have to say as amended or not? Okay. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Murphy. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That passes. We're back on the base bill. Is there, yes, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know. The intent of this is so that we don't have a lot of special elections. And after listening to Brian and others, I think that we need a conceptual amendment that these cannot be mail ballots. I don't think we should, what happened in Sedgwick, if we don't address the mail ballot situation, I think we could have that again, like the school election. It was $136,000, the conferee said, for that election. So we're trying to get more money and spending that kind of money in order to get it. So I don't know how that would work, Mr. Chairman.
I'll tell you, rather than trying to wordsmith either do it on the floor, I can hold and work this tomorrow and finish it up. If we'd like to have another amendment, if you'd like to work with Jason to, and maybe check with the Secretary of State to make sure we're not conflicting any problems, rather than trying to do this on the fly.
That might be good, Mr. Chairman. I guess it's up to the committee. I don't want to hold anything up, but I think we should address.
Well, that way we can get the wording correct instead of trying to do it on the fly. Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought I understood Brian to say that mail ballots were in a separate section of the election law. Is that correct? And he said those are already restricted.
Let's ask Brian Caskey on
Mail
that.
ballot
Brian, if
election.
you could step up and answer Senator
Could you just,
Gossage.
could you clarify that for us, please?
Yes. So the Mail Ballot Act exists in Chapter 25, Article 4, and it lists all the jurisdictions that can have mail ballot elections. It says you cannot ever elect a candidate, so it has to be a local question. There's about 16 or 17 types of jurisdictions that are allowed to do so. Municipalities mostly. There's a handful of special districts that aren't. But generally speaking, most municipalities are allowed to have a question election only. You cannot elect a candidate through a mail ballot election.
So follow up, if I may, Mr. Chair. So then it sounds like if we want to make sure that's not happening in these special elections, that we need to clarify that it not be a mail ballot election, correct?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I agree we should wait.
Senator Tyson. Senator Faustigoto.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have just a clarifying question for Brian Caskey. So just make it clear for me. So if there is a special election, those people who are disabled or senior citizens that are ill and they are on a permanent mail-in ballot to allow them to still get to vote. So saying it can only be in person, please clarify.
Well, not, Senator Tyson, with your permission, I'd like to attempt to say what you were meaning, I believe. What I believe Senator Tyson was saying is that it would be a traditional polling place election. However, Kansas has advanced voting laws, and so those laws would remain in effect unless the legislature wanted to do something different. So in-person early voting, by mail early voting, permanent advanced voting, all that goes with polling place elections. That's how we do even year and odd year elections for candidates. What I believe Senator Tyson was saying was just elections that are done exclusively by mail with no other option.
So I think you want to do, okay, Senator Francisco, did you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hate to bring up Senate Bill 65 again, but it was a bill that was allowing for a mail-in election, a mail ballot election, because you could have an irrigation district that was over 35,000 acres. So I just want to make sure that we don't, I mean, there can be reasons to have a mail ballot. I understand that they can cost money, but so do in-person elections. So until I'd also like, we haven't given anybody the opportunity to testify on that. So I'm a little hesitant to talk about adding that in at this point.
Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think what we have here is a good bill, and I think we've had a lot of discussion. It's been amended, and I think we ought to address this bill, talk about these mail-in ballot elections at a separate time. It's a different part of our statutes, and it impacts, I don't know, did you say 16 different entities, which is huge. That's huge policy. So can we deal with this and then move on to the other statute?
Senator Tyson.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was going to bring a bill next year, so I don't mind waiting. Jason and I were going to work on it.
Okay.
I don't think any financial election should be a mail ballot election exclusively. I think these schools have taken advantage of, and other entities, they push these elections. I mean, just look what happened in Wichita. What day was that election? I mean, out of the middle of nowhere, most people wouldn't even know it was going on. And so mail ballot elections, I think we need to address that too. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to wait till next year because we were going to work on that this summer, so.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Okay, so I think we're in pretty good shape back on the bill. Yes, well, this is why we have the discussion. Senator Gossage.
Mr. Chair, I move we pass out Senate Bill or House Bill 2022 as amended favorably.
Thank you. Is there a second on that? Senator Blue, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. That bill passed. And yes, Senator Tyson.
Thank you. I am going to come back to that because now I'm thinking it through. No, the problem's going to be, we told the schools now they can't have an in-person election except for 3 days. So they're going to revert to these mail ballot elections now. So it's going to be critical that we do something quickly on that. We'll have to live with it for a year, but thank you, Mr.
No, and I appreciate that, and I think we do need to address that. I agree 100%. So, because we don't want to have the costs and all these different issues with that. Some make sense, some do not. Senator Francisco.
So my understanding would be this is saying there are 3 times you can have an election. It's not an election by mail or an election in person. I don't know how they would have a mail ballot election if it's not on an election day. I mean, wouldn't you have to you would have to say, here's our deadline for receiving the ballots, and I would assume that would be then the first Tuesday in April. Am I missing something or not paying attention?
Yeah.
We'll
I
find
think-
out more.
This is good discussion to have, and I'll chat with Secretary of State's office. You obviously would like to as well. I'm sure Senator Tyson will. This is a good discussion, and I appreciate it very much. That's, like I said, that's why we do this. So we are done working House Bill 2022 as amended. We will move on to House Bill 2106 next, and that has to do with the prohibition of foreign money in constitutional questions. And I'll have Jason give us a quick. Oh, we voted on the amendment. I'm sorry. What? No, Senator Gossage,
Pass the bill out.
Yes, we did. Yes, okay. Yes, we did. We voted, yeah. A lot of amendments, a lot of motions. I think we're in good shape, right, Jason? I'm pretty sure we got it all.
Chairman, yes, we had a motion
Yes.
that was adopted on the amendment, and a motion to pass the bill out favorably as amended was approved.
Thank heavens for Jason. Okay, next up, we're going to move on to 2106 and have Jason give us an overview.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 2106 is the bill that amends the election statute regarding campaign finance regulations on persons who engage in promoting or opposing amendments to the state constitution. The bill would require that no one would prohibit the direct or indirect receipt of contributions for those activities from foreign nationals. It would also require that any donor who is not a foreign national to certify that the donor has not received contributions from foreign nationals in an aggregate amount of more than $100,000 in the 4-year period prior to the donor's contribution. It provides some prosecutorial discretion on violations of this with the Attorney General, and there is a definition of a foreign national on page 2 of the bill to identify who those individuals or entities are. And the bill would go into effect on July 1st if enacted.
Thank you, committee. Any discussion on the base bill? Are there any amendments on House Bill 2106? Seeing none. Do you have an amendment? Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you can have Jason explain.
If you prefer. Yeah, okay. Senator Tyson will have Jason explain the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the amendment that was just passed out would expand the prohibition on contributions. So the underlying bill prohibits contributions from foreign nationals, and the balloon would also prohibit contributions from any out-of-state person. And so that is added everywhere where you would see foreign national throughout the bill. I will direct the committee's attention to page 3 of the amendment, where out-of-state person is defined as any individual who is not a resident of this state or any entity that is organized under the laws of, has its principal place of business in, or is otherwise domiciled in a state other than this state.
Any discussion? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we heard testimony about your dollars being your voice. Well, I have grave concern over that. I understand it was a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, but that means that somebody with more money has a greater voice. And I just feel like I would like to see it that you can't even have donations out of district, but to start with, we could at least stop out-of-state donations. And there is a severability clause in this so that if it is challenged in court, we will not lose the whole bill. We will only lose the portion of the out-of-state money. Thank you.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know the senator made a comment about out of district, but this would only apply to a question regarding the Constitution, right? So it's not any other campaign contributions. It's only the Constitution.
Constitutional amendment, correct.
If I May, Mr. Chairman, it's a good place to start.
Any other comments or discussion or questions? Senator Clifford.
Yeah, it is well-intentioned, but, wow, with Citizens United out there, we're just asking to get this challenged in court. I do like the idea. Just thinking out loud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure thing. We can get challenges on all sorts of different stuff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, do you move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move my amendment, and that is why the severability clause is in case they.
In case that's the situation.
I anticipate they will, but we need to start the conversation. Out-of-state influences, out-of-country influences should not be happening. Thank you.
We have a motion by Senator Tyson. Is there a second? Second by Senator Clifford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay. The amendment passes, and we are back on the base bill. Any further discussion or amendments, committee? Seeing none, we have a motion on the bill. Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2106 favorably as amended.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Starnes. Yeah, I was thinking Barnes, Starnes, okay, Brad Starnes, it all runs together. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. That bill passes. Thank you very much. And our final bill we're going to work this morning is Senate Bill 254. And I'll have Jason give us the overview on that one.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 254 is a bill that prohibits any alien who is unlawfully present in the United States from receiving any state or local benefit as that is defined by federal law. The bill, there are some public benefits under federal law, such as emergency medical care, short-term non-cash in-kind emergency disaster relief, public health immunizations that are permitted for aliens who are unlawfully present in the United States. The bill specifically does not include licenses issued by the State Division of Motor Vehicles as a public benefit, but it does include the reduced tuition and fee benefits by post-secondary educational institutions for those who are unlawfully present in the United States. That would be a public benefit prohibited under the bill. The bill also requires that the immigration status be verified for any alien who is charged with a crime through the federal verification system, and that if the person is found to be unlawfully present in the United States, then there is a rebuttable presumption that such person is a flight risk for purposes of issuing an appearance bond.
Committee, any questions? Senator Faust-Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for clarification regarding the in-state tuition piece of this, Jason, if you could tell us, so it does not give them free in-state tuition, is that correct? So they still have to apply, if you could explain.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the current law provides in-state tuition for these individuals who may not have lawful status in the United States but are applying for lawful status in the United States at the post-secondary educational institutions in the state.
Senator Faust-Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but just I want to clarify. So we're not giving them free, we're just allowing them to apply, and then they still pay. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it would be in-state tuition and fee rates as compared to out-of-state tuition and fee rates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then one last question. So I just want to remind the body, of the testimony brought forward from Mike Taylor with the municipalities of how he said this would impact and affect those municipalities. And so maybe you want to, and he wasn't for or against, he just talked about how it would, because I'm still not clear myself on public benefits. Does it mean, they'd have to show ID to go to a public park, a public grocery store, et cetera? If you could clarify, Jason, thank you.
There's U.S. code that allows them to obtain emergency medical relief, disaster relief. There's a whole list on U.S. code. I think it's I can find it very quickly. 1621B. So, and that defines what public benefits are. So there's some exceptions. If you look at the U.S. code, there's also definitions on qualified aliens, things of that nature. So, any other questions? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we're asking for affirmative proof as part of this. So I'm wondering if a driver's license could be affirmative proof. It doesn't mention that, and it just talks about documentary evidence recognized by the Division of Motor Vehicle.
I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if Brian, I see Brian Caskey sitting there. I don't know if he knows either. He's not a DMV guy. Jason, do you have any answer on that one?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the documentary evidence of lawful presence it would be the same evidence that is recognized by the Division of Motor Vehicles when they are processing an application for a temporary driver's license, as was discussed on the prior bill. So when you are applying for that temporary driver's license and you're providing documentary evidence that you are lawfully present in the United States to be issued that license, that same evidence would be sufficient for your proof of lawful presence in the United States under new Section 1.
Senator Francisco.
So maybe I'm not reading this correctly. You have to provide proof that you're a citizen or that you're an alien lawfully present. And I'm thinking the affirmative proof applies to both the citizen and the alien. Am I not reading that correctly?
Jason, on that one?
Well, yes, the evidence that you would provide to the Division of Motor Vehicles would be the evidentiary proof if you are have obtained citizenship in the United States. You would have the federal documents, government documents showing your citizenship, and that would be your satisfactory proof under Section 1.
But then I'm sort of wondering, can you bring your driver's license? Because that's what people mostly have. This says you need the document, includes. So that's not sufficient, right? That's just part of what you're bringing. It includes documentary evidence recognized by the Division of Motor Vehicles. So that's like your marriage certificate or your passport or something beyond just here's a driver's license that says.
And I had to do that very thing. In fact, when I reapplied for my driver's license, and I wanted to get like the secured travel. I brought marriage certificate. I brought all this documentation. So I think, as long as they can provide that, that would be, and it meets the requirements.
But then we're telling.
San Francisco.
So we're saying to people that anytime you are receiving this public benefit, you have to come with all this other evidence, and it can't just be your driver's license?
I think if it was questioned, that would be the situation. If someone had a question about whether or not they should be receiving, and again, we're talking about things like in-state tuition, where somebody would have to provide documentation if there was any question of that, something of that nature.
But we're saying shall, we're not saying may, so it's not when it's questioned. It's you have to have this. And these benefits are applying for, so somebody goes to apply for SNAP benefits, they're going to have to prove that they're a citizen at this point, right?
If this bill goes, yes. Senator Gossage. I think you had the next.
I would just say that just makes sense. I mean, if you're applying for food stamps or any other kind of public benefit like that, and I think it's very well delineated, it just makes sense that you would have to prove that you're legally in this country.
Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you already have to provide all of that anyway. It's already required. I just spoke to our Secretary of DCF. So that information is already required when you apply for SNAP benefits. And I guess my concern is more so, because me right now, I don't even know where my Social Security card is, actually. I got to get it replaced. I don't know where that is, but I just need clarification. So, Jason, are we talking about well, I know certain benefits, but so we are requiring these documentation, is it and all, or you can, like if I go to vote, and you don't have your ID, if you're a certain age, you can show a utility bill for people of certain ages. So is it all of these items or just one of these items would be required?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the bill requires that at the time of application for a state or local public benefit, the individual shall provide proof that they are a citizen or permanent resident of the United States or a lawfully present alien in the United States. And the documentary evidence that is recognized by the Division of Motor Vehicles, along with any document issued by the federal government confirming an alien's lawful presence in the United States, is the affirmative proof that would be necessary.
Senator Tom, anybody else? Any further discussion? Senator Francisco?
Another concern I had was brought up by the Association of Counties, and that's that there is a charge for the systematic alien verification for entitlements program. And so we're asking our counties now to take on that additional cost. And I don't have it here, so I might bring it to the floor. But I don't think we should be asking counties when we're talking about them not having enough money as it is, you know, and we want to be helping them with property tax relief. Now we're on the other hand saying you're going to have to make these expenditures every time. And it's very clear what state and local public benefits do not include. I think it's a little murkier what they do include.
Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My last two final point and a question. Again, food stamps. You have to be a citizen already to get those benefits. And then, again, on the tuition part, it's not a public benefit. It's not free. Those students are paying out of pocket. They're just allowed to pay that in-state tuition as opposed to out-of-state. It's not a free public benefit. They're paying money. Is that correct or not? Thank you.
They would pay out-of-state tuition. I'm guessing, is that not correct, Jason? They just wouldn't be eligible for the in-state tuition rate. Is that correct, Jason?
Mr. Chairman, under current law, they receive the in-state tuition rate. They do still pay that amount if they have no other financial assistance. The federal law defines a public benefit as any post-secondary education payment or assistance that is provided.
Committee, there is an amendment on this, which I would like to bring, and it regards the bail situation, and I'll have Jason pass that out. And I apologize, we're running a little bit long, but want to make sure we get this right. And I'll have Jason explain very quickly.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and the balloon you see before you on page 2, you see the new language regarding verification of the immigration status of an alien who is charged with a crime is being stricken. That language is being reinserted on page 4 following line 39, which, as my understanding, is maybe a more appropriate placement for that language in the statute. But there is no substantive change to that language. It is simply being moved. On page 3, you will see an amendment in line 31 clarifying that at an appearance bond, the magistrate, in their discretion of making that determination, would be at a hearing at which the person charged is present, to clarify that there must be a hearing with the person charged being present. And then on page 4 in line 19, in a paragraph in which the court is determining the release of a person on their own recognizance, it is clarifying that the person who's charged with the crime who is not a flight risk or a risk of public safety in that paragraph there.
Thank you, Jason. And just to be certain, this was brought to us by the bail group. I think Shane Rolfe is here in case you have any questions for him. But bail cannot be denied even to illegal immigrants in capital cases, except in capital cases. And so the way it was written, there could be some constitutional issues. And if you have any questions of why this amendment, please, Shane's available in case we have any questions. Seeing none, I will move this amendment, or is there a second? Second by Senator Blue. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. We are back on the base bill. Committee, any other further discussion or amendments? Senator Clifford.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just didn't want to blindside you, but I will be in opposition to moving this bill favorably.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion or questions? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you. So we didn't have time during the hearing to look through and hear from all the people that wanted to speak. So Harvesters is the group that came to my office and visited with me about how this will impact on their ability to distribute food, because they have public-private partnerships. So Meals on Wheels will be impacted because that's a public benefit. It receives public funds. So there's a lot of I'm just going to call them feeding programs, you know, for our communities that will be deeply affected by this. So I will also be a no vote, not because I don't think there are good components of this bill. That one deeply concerns me.
And to be sure, the day that we had this hearing, as you recall, there was a disruption that denied the committee the opportunity to finish asking questions of the opponents. So one person acting out really kind of messed things up. So it's very unfortunate, and I appreciate the comments on that. So with that, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add my concerns that, you know, we have previously in the legislature addressed the question of in-state tuition, and I think bringing it as part of this much more extensive prohibition is going to leave us with some things we may not want, like food, to be dealing with, and making those entities who are distributing those products have to verify for every person. So we're just adding a lot of unnecessary paperwork, delay, and expense.
Thank you. Senator Gossage.
I know time is late. I'll make this quick, Mr. Chair. So just to verify, if a student comes here, like my intern is from Illinois, and he's attending KU, he has to pay out-of-state tuition, correct?
That is
My daughter went to NYU. She had to pay out-of-state tuition. Our state dollars were to go for people who are here lawfully. So it just makes sense if we're requiring somebody who comes over from Missouri to attend a Kansas school, they have to pay out-of-state tuition. They're not allowed to pay in-state tuition. I just wanted to verify that's correct. Thank you.
That's correct. Any further discussion? Seeing none, yes, we'll take a motion. Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out Senate Bill 254 favorably as amended.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Murphy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 254 is, and you want your vote recorded? Yeah, okay. Any others? I would. And Senator Fasquedo. Okay. Committee, thank you so much. A lot of work today. I appreciate your indulgence on that. We have a bill hearing, I think, on Senate Bill 196 tomorrow, I believe it is. I lost Senate Bill 196. With that, no other